Welcome, everyone, to the Women of Soul Aligned Business podcast. I'm Joe Che. I'm here with Denise Michelle. She is the Self-Love Alchemist, an award-winning life coach, hypnotherapist, and she empowers healers and spiritual entrepreneurs through self-love mastery. She's been doing this for 25 years or longer, and I'm really excited. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Joe. Thanks.
Yeah, and you've been working with Tony Robbins for a bunch of years, one of the trainers in that, so I'm sure you've learned a lot in this field. And in this work you're doing with this self-love mastery, which is a term that you've coined, the self-love alchemist, which is a very cool name. I'm curious, as you're working with people, what are some of the biggest blocks for women who are starting their businesses out in that first year? Maybe it's their first time starting a business. What are some of the blocks and the advice that you have associated with that?
Yeah, that's such a good question. You've got comparisonitis, you've got imposter syndrome, you have perfectionism, you have self-limiting beliefs, you've got the self-worth and the self-esteem issues. It's like, entrepreneurship it's an emotional roller coaster. And we get really excited the first moments of it. You're like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I have this big vision. And you kind of just, once it starts to settle in, you start to recognize and realize there's more to this path. And one of the greatest things that I learned actually through Tony Robbins was that business is a spiritual game. So it is going to cause you to up level on as a human being. You can't help but go through personal growth when you're starting a business, right? Because this vision is yours. This is you're choosing not to work for anybody else. You're choosing not to create somebody else's dream. Now you are in your dream. Richard Branson says something that just stayed with me for years, and he says that if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And so this is one of the things that I like to offer people stepping into an entrepreneurial place is it's not about perfection. It's not about doing things perfectly. The biggest part of anything that we do is always going to be our why. Why are you doing this? Why is this important to you? Is this for some people, yeah, it might be the driving force might be money, but okay, well, why is that important to you even, right? And if you really start looking at the core of this, it has everything to do with meeting your human needs, right? What need are you trying to meet? And where are you trying to provide the service so it really creates something for the highest good for all? Because when we become entrepreneurs, it's not just about me. You're putting something out there in service of.
Absolutely. And I love if your dreams don't scare you, then they're not big enough. And there was a lot in there. And I'm also hearing that business and soul aligned business specifically is one of the biggest mirrors that we have, because when you're in a soul aligned business, it has to come from your authentic self, and it has to be married and paired with the relevance to the world. So in other words, who are you serving? What problem are you solving? How are you showing up in a way of a relevant service to others? In order to do that, then that really puts this mirror to us where we constantly need to ask ourselves, are we truly aligned? And you spoke to this. What is our why? Why are we doing this? Is it to be validated? Is it because we're in scarcity and want money? It's whatever it is, we have to ask that why. If we don't have that grounding why, then we really can't be in a soul aligned business. We're just out there to make money, or we're out there to stroke our own egos. So, what I'm hearing from you is, one, if you're in your first year of business or thinking about going into that, get to your why first. And I have a course, it's actually a free course, where we talk about the steps to successful soul-aligned business, which is different than what the world has told us, getting all this stuff. And the first is to uncover what it is you are here to actually do. That's a big one. But the second one is to actually make that relevant to others. And if you don't have that second one, then it's not going to be successful. Third one's to build the machine, which is all the structures, components, and all the funnels and databases and things of the sort. So as you're working with people, what is one of those things that when you do this with one of your clients, you really light up and you get a lot of, you just feel like you're in it, you're in you, completely you?
Yeah. I'm like, which part of it? Because there's so many aspects of it. So self-love mastery, I believe, is three things. It's self-love, self-care, and self-healing. These are the three things that I'm most obsessed with, or you can say passionate about, right? And I am always in observation. I'm always looking at the links, right? So when I'm working with people, and the first thing I do is I create assessments. I want to know everything from your personality type to your human design to your life assessment, where your numbers are, what are your human needs, to your love languages. I want to see all of that because this helps me to start create a foundation, right? I start to see the foundation of you. And once I start to see these and I start to put these links together, I'm kind of like a spiritual architect in a way. And it's just like, my gosh. And then we start to get into designing the vision. This is the part that tends to like really trip people out because they're like, how do you see this? And I'm like, how do you not? Right? But I guess it's harder to see it for ourselves when we have somebody else looking at it from a bird's eye view. And this is what's so magical about it, is because it's not just about like, I'm stepping into my authentic self or I'm discovering myself right now. I'm like, no, you're doing better than that. You may be making discoveries, but you are literally creating yourself. You get to create yourself from a blank slate. This is your canvas. Now let's create it the way that you want to, right? Let's create the garden. And once we start planting those seeds, this is when things start to bloom. And I think that it's that initial part of it, though. It's creating the foundation and getting people to understand I need some sort of a destination in order to create what I would love in my life. But that's the biggest thing, is that if you look at there's a two sides of the coin, because the first thing that I will often hear is all the things that you don't want. People are really good at telling you what they don't want. And then you turn it around and you're like, okay, well then what would you love?
When everything's available in the world, it's like, what do you choose? And you said something that I want to follow up on, which is it's very difficult to see the picture when you're inside the frame. And it sounds like you're really taking this from a spiritual level, looking at all the things in someone and trying to help them sort of uncover and make that vision very clear. For me, I'm much more neurodivergent and analytical and process oriented. So I actually have just the questions, these 13 questions that always work. And I found that a good process to take someone through it, because it always sort of uncovers and says, okay, here's how you can make money doing what you love to do. Because I found if you can't make it financially sustainable, then you end up burning out. You're not serving the people that you really should be serving. You're not in that purpose, and that requires a lot of overcoming of limiting beliefs of like, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm scared to be seen on camera. I'm scared to put my voice out there. Or I'm not pretty enough, or I don't have enough big following enough. Like, there's a lot of common things that most people are holding in these limiting beliefs.
Yeah, and that's the core of it. And oftentimes what I've found is it goes way back, right? These are a lot of them have to do with our childhood upbringing. These seeds have been planted. It's our programming at the end of the day. But most people are not conscious to what their limiting beliefs are until they are, right? So it's all about learning, well, what are my patterns? What are my habits? What are my behaviors? And then really understanding, now that I recognize them, I can use them to create leverage, and then you create a new pattern. And this is where the biggest amount of change happens, is because even though maybe somebody who's thinking about business or wanting or in their first year of business and they have this big vision, this is why a lot of businesses fail in that first year, is because they lose steam in that. Their limiting beliefs, their paradigms all start taking over. But if you start recognizing them early on, right, and you're continuing to work through your quality questions, the healing processes that go along with this, and at the same time, emotional regulation and nervous system regulation, you're going to start to recognize, whoa, this is power. This is when I start to understand myself in a whole new way that, yes, I have a vision. Yes, I can create a sustainable income doing this. And yes, I can be grounded in my authenticity as I am deep in my why, because that will be your driving force. If your why is strong enough, and that's why the why is so important, is that gives you the leverage that you need to start breaking through those limiting beliefs.
Absolutely. And you become magnetic, right? You become magnetic when your why is so strong. If you meet someone and they're like, I make widgets go 2% faster, you're not ready to get on board, get behind and push or cheer for them. When you're
Yeah.
like, I have this vision and we are going to heal this neighborhood and take it back and, whatever it is, everyone's like, yeah, let's go. And what I found is if someone is not doing their sole purpose and making money at it, it's always for one reason and one reason only. There is a limiting belief that is blocking that. And there's processes to help undo that because it's like many times we're just scared. It's just fear of like, I'm comfortable with this 9 to 5 job. One of my biggest joys is doing this Icky Girl process and then 6 months later, and then just seeing the breakthrough. And then 6 months later, their messages are like, oh my God, I left my corporate job. I have clients. I'm okay. My kids are fed. I made this retreat center in Norway. I am now working with all these people over in Central Africa. And you're just like, that's where the heart comes in and the joy comes in for me is seeing people take brave steps because the reality is it's a brave step to leave your comfort zone to do something that you really care about. Because now when you date someone you don't really care about, it doesn't matter if you break up. It doesn't matter if it fails, right? Because you don't really care all that much. But when it's someone you're obsessed with and infatuated and you're like, oh my God, this is it, then you're so scared of screwing it up that sometimes it can be
Yeah.
debilitating, paralyzing.
Absolutely. Well, because it's striking a deeper part of you, right? And when we feel like there's more to lose, which at the end of the day, there's nothing to lose because we're here to learn. That's why we're in Earth School. So when we have these visions, something that we want to create, the fear just means that you haven't done something yet. It doesn't mean that you're not capable of it, right? And there's two ways to really look at it. You can look at it as everything and run, which I've done before, right? Or face everything and rise. So if you're willing to face yourself and you're willing to have, like you're saying, the bravery and the courage, what is courage? Courage is having fear, but doing the thing anyway, right? And you've done it and I've done it. We're both in Bali. Firsthand tell you like it's not an easy move from the United States, coming from a completely different culture and coming to across the world to a place like this. And then it's like, whoa, it's a huge culture shock in a lot of ways and on our nervous system, right? But that takes courage. And what does it do? Once we step into our courage, we start stepping deeper into our authenticity because we start recognizing that it's not about the mask. It's not about the presentation. It's about, all right, who am I really? Because at the end of the day, I don't care who they are. They might be a really great salesman, but if you can't connect to their heart, they might be really good at selling something, but if you're not connecting to their soul, eventually it will show up somewhere in their life, right? Or it won't serve the people that, because I've seen this too in the coaching world, right? Where there have been really great salesmen in the coaching. They've created the systems, they've done all that. But if that person, for example, is not doing their inner work and then they're out there serving, I have actually seen coaches leave people worse than they found them, right? But the coaches who do their inner work, the coaches and the mentors and the teachers who have been through the stuff and who have a track record, these are the people that you really want to look for because, and this is also something that I teach when it comes to leading with love, is that authenticity truly is everything. People, whether or not you recognize it, they can feel you on a spiritual level. They can feel if you're authentic. And it's unfortunate that sometimes people get preyed upon because they're in their vulnerability, right?
In your journey, because it takes practice to be in authenticity. And I agree that people aren't going to relate to you if you are not in that authentic self. You're just like, even if they come in with the big cars and the nice houses, etc., there's something that is missing there. And I know for me, it's been a journey to try to show up authentically, especially in a social media space, because you go and you're like, I am 48 years old man who doesn't look good in a bikini on social media. It's kind of hard to get attention, right? So you hire people that have the answers, that have done well, and they tell you what to do and you follow it. You're like, I don't know about this, but okay, I'm going to follow the people that have been successful in this. And for me, I realized after a certain point that what they're telling me to do is not authentic to me. Getting in front of the talking head camera, saying the things, trying to make these viral clips, and then it was like, okay, that didn't really work. But then when I started getting the podcasting, felt authentic because we're just having a conversation. And for me, it's very easy to be real and authentic in a conversation one-on-one with someone. And it's hard just, to write scripts and get in and try to drop balloons from the ceilings or whatever they're trying to do, put on the bathing suit. It's like, how do you get into authenticity? So for you, did you feel like going into this that you were able to be completely authentic from the beginning, or did it take some time?
No, it took time. One thing that you're learning about my history is that I was born with something called borderline personality disorder. So I actually didn't have an identity growing up. I was like a chameleon. So my identity consisted of people I saw in movies or other people that I mimicked, because I didn't know anything really about myself. I didn't have emotional regulation. I was very dysfunctional emotionally, and I lived in a very chaotic childhood and had a lot of issues at home. Growing up not in a safe environment like that, and then starting at 13 years old, having suicidal thoughts, at 14 trying to commit suicide, and then starting to go through the process once in my 20s, once my behaviors and my patterns started getting worse to the point where I was having like full-on psychotic breakdowns and on a regular basis. And the only people who saw it were people who were close to me. Otherwise, I was a functioning borderline, and I could hold a job, and I had really high accolades and, a lot of recognitions. And on the outside, I looked totally normal, but on the inside, people had no idea what I was suffering with. And it nearly killed me many times. So when I started going through my healing process and then was finally diagnosed at 26 years old with BPD and started the process, and then at 28, I put myself into an outpatient treatment program. I left my corporate job of almost 10 years to do that, to save my life. And that's when I created my identity. I remember I looked at it kind of like what I was sharing with you guys about looking at your canvas. And I had this canvas, and I said, well, if I don't want to be that anymore, then who do I want to be? And I said, well, I really want to be a kind and compassionate and empathetic person who wants to help people. And that's how I became a yoga teacher, and then went on to own and operate a yoga studio with the idea that yoga was therapy for people and that it was a healing space for people. And that's what I created. So the authentic part of it didn't really step in until about 2014, when I took off my mask and I came out to the world that I was living with borderline. And I had received a signal that I wasn't just going to tell this to the world. I wrote an article and I submitted it to Elephant Journal that got published. So then it gets put out literally into the whole world. And I thought that I was going to lose all my students. I thought I was going to lose my business, but something magical happened. And suddenly I became a voice, and I became somebody else's courage to heal. And this was the very beginning of me doing what I'm doing now. And all of that started because in 2013, I had a really bad surfing accident. I don't know if you can see the scar here, 29 stitches to the face. And that just ripped me open. And I realized, if I'm going through this, I know there are other people who have as well. And so I made the decision to be brave and put myself out there in lieu that if I can help just one person, this will all be worth it. The one thing that I've said in every step that I've taken in both businesses, in everything that I've ever done, and getting to the other side of things, is if I can get through this and I can help just one person, this will all be worth it, because it was never about me in the first place.
Thank you for being that brave voice. It's always interesting. There's so much fear to speak up on so many subjects, and as soon as you do, that is the permission for others to use their voice too. It's the inspiration for those who are listening that are struggling with mental health issues or self-confidence or self-love, knowing sometimes just speaking authentically about it, all you need to do to inspire and to help heal others, and for someone to have a feeling of belonging. That's how we feel belonging. As Homo sapiens, we tend to feel so isolated and alone in our emotions and feelings. And the truth is, most of them are extremely similar to many other people's. And we think we're so unique, but the truth is, in our experiences, these bad things that have happened to us, these difficulties, and I promise you, there is a ton of other people that are going through that too. And the question is, does that bring you into a place of victimhood that these things have happened? Or can you turn them into your greatest strength, your greatest power? And, the people that are really doing these soul aligned businesses, they're generally coming from a place of wanting to serve a former version of themselves, because that's the person you know so intimately. I know the severe ADHD, slightly autistic, neurodivergent younger self for me, and the depression and the anxiety going through, and like those feelings of just like needing more and more stimulation and chasing the validation and the women and the drugs and the parties. And it's like, I know that version, and I know the struggles of starting those businesses with those things. That's how you serve. You serve that former version of you, and that's what inspires people, and that's what it feels like you're doing, and it feels like you're very much in your soul alignment at the moment, which is absolutely super beautiful.
Thank you. No, what's great about it is that, getting diagnosed with BPD was a difficult thing, and it took me 14 years to heal it, of really really deep inner work of rewiring my brain and rewiring those patterns. And the doctors say you can't heal it. And so this is what I want to put out there as well, is for anybody who deals with any kind of diagnosis. The doctors don't think the doctors are God, right? Because you can create, like I said, you get to create you. And nothing has meaning except the meaning that you give it. So I chose that I wasn't going to listen to those doctors, and I wasn't going to say, you can't recover from borderline. You can, but you have to really freaking want it. And I did. And I did because I knew that there was something else on the other side of that. And what I've discovered at this stage is that, Joe, I am more in love with what I do today than I was yesterday. And I've been 7.5 years in this business, and I just cannot get enough in service and sharing and going in my own bubbles and learning more things, and and creating more tools to give to people. I feel like this is how you just get so lit up by what you're here to share, that it's like, okay, hey fear, I see you, I know that you're here, and cool, it just means I haven't done this thing before. Right? So you're going to be my friend along this journey, and I know that you're going to be a constant companion to me, and that's cool. And I'm still going to take the step forward because I know at the end of the day, my why is much bigger than the fear, right?
I love that. I really feel your authenticity and your truth in that, and that feels really great. So thank you. Denise, if there are people out there that are struggling to uncover that purpose, hit me up. I have some great processes. And if you're struggling out there with that self-love and mastering that, please reach out to Denise Michelle. On Instagram, it's Denise Michelle, and the website is bridgethelove.com. She has a book coming out soon, which I'm excited to hear about. It's called
Embrace Your Worth, the ultimate guide to self-love mastery.
I love that. It sounds like the soul's work. I actually have my first book coming out in December also. So with the ADHD, that was my limiting belief, is the one thing I can never do is write a book. So I'm excited for that. I feel
Congratulations.
proud to get through that too. So please find us both. We'll put everything in the show notes. If you need that support, if you need that inspiration, that direction, you want to build a business, you want to build more self-love. Thank you so much, Denise Michelle, for being with us, and I hope everyone has an amazing day.